everyone. Irene Krause of Krause Creations back with you finally with the next stage of doing these do-it-yourself bezels for acrylic pours, at least insofar as what I'm covering on them at this time. I actually have a few. There's going to be one more video in this series that's going to be part of this particular set of things I'm working on. This stage of things is what I'm calling sealing the work because, well, here, let's bring some of these up. When you're putting a surface effect, here, let me put it down so my hands aren't shaking so much on you. Many of the things that I do with these to dress these clay pieces up is I apply what's known as a surface effect to it. In this case, this was done with some chalk powders, some regular, ordinary. Oh, I can't reach it right now. I'm also in the middle of completely reorganizing my crafting area. So anyway, I just took a well, in this case, it was my hexagon stencil and laid it over the raw clay, and then I graded up some of the pastels in the various colors and rubbed them over the surface. And it does, when you do this on the raw clay prior to baking, it does bond very well with the clay. So it's, as you can see, I'm rubbing at it. It's not coming off or moving or anything like that. But it could be scratched. And that is true of whether if I put acrylic paint on there, alcohol ink, any of the number of the various things you can use to do surface effects with mica powders. They have to be protected or sealed, as I call it, so that they cannot be scratched away, because after all, this is going to be a piece of jewelry that someone is wearing. It could come in contact with various things, and this surface effect could easily end up being scratched off for one reason or another. So I have to apply a sealer of some sort to it prior to finishing it up as an item of jewelry, which will be the final stage of what I'm covering with this particular set of things. But at any rate, that's what I call this stage of things, is sealing the work. So that, again, so that, like in this case, this hasn't been sealed yet. This is still as it came right out of the oven. It's ready to have something put on top of it. But which one I do and how I do that will vary. I'll cover some of the primary things that I use for sealers, but there's a lot of different things you can use to seal. Well, it all depends upon what you've done. It has to seal whatever it is to the polymer clay, or if it's something else, it would have to, if you're, like in this case, these are actually those wooden discs that you can buy, and you could put all kinds of different sealers on those. Now, I'm primarily separating these into two categories, which would be the non-resin finishes and then also the resin finishes. So most of which all I use are compatible with both the polymer clay and the acrylic paints. But I have been discovering as I go along with this that not everything I thought that was going to work out did so. So let's talk a little bit about that first. So I already showed you the one that was a fail before, which is a common way of finishing polymer clay, which involved the liquid polymer clay that you would put on something. I showed you this one before in the series, but I'll bring it up here again. As you could see, when this was liquid polymer clay that was applied to the top of the acrylic pour that I had cut out, And once it was baked, of course, to cure the liquid clay, it turned quite yellow. So in other words, something that was in this particular pour, either the type of paint that was used or possibly how I had mixed the pouring medium. Like I said, at this point, I really don't know what's causing this. And it's becoming more of a problem than I thought as the further I get into doing these. So at this point, I don't know why it's doing it, but I just know it's a problem. The second one I had this happen with, let me put this one back aside. Like I said, one part of this is my own learning process. I've learned I have to document better what I'm using insofar as types of paints and so forth in my pours or my finishes that are going on the polymer clay, so I can try to narrow down what it is that's causing the problems with this. Because now here is a set. Let me see if I can't get these. Yes, and I do pardon my very messy work area, but see if well, this is a brown one, but it'll work. You should still be able to see these. This is a set. This was the going to be the pendant, that is. And this was going to be the earring set that was going to go with it. Now, as I zoom in on this, you could see that again, this did the exact same thing. And it yellowed. As you could see, there's the white. This was actually from that same pour that was used in that previous item. And as you could see, the white, because this is one where it didn't yellow. You could see it was supposed to be a white color, and it yellowed very dramatically. This finish, though, is the Mod Podge Dimensional Magic, which is supposed to be, as I understand things, it is supposed to be safe to use. I know it's safe to use on a polymer clay, so I don't think it was the polymer clay that caused this. I think, again, it was something to do with this acrylic pour, either the paints involved or the mix of things that I had used for the pouring medium. This pouring medium was one of the first ones I had made, and I'm pretty sure I remember what it was I put into it. And because I made a new pouring medium, because I actually had used that up, and all of my current ones, which, as you could see here, that one doesn't have any white in it, so that's probably not a good example. Let me put that down so we can know we're talking about that one. No, that one doesn't have any. Well, this is one I haven't started cutting up yet, but I think the white that's there visible in this one came from the fact that the paint did not completely cover the paper. So I don't think I can use this particular one. So I guess I don't have one then, because I know there was no white in that other pour. I've only done 2 pours with that new mix of the pouring medium. So again, more experimentation is necessary. I guess I will have to do one that contains white, and then I will see if it is. My current pouring medium, I'll put it down in the description, and it'll also be, of course, on my blog post for this entire series, which is pretty basic, I think. It's a Liquitex pouring medium, just a little bit. I'm not going to get into the ratios. You'll have to see in the recipe there for that. But there's Liquitex pouring medium. There's, well, it's not the Floetrol, but it's the one that's similar to it. And then there's, of course, the Elmer's Glue All. That's what I'm using currently as my pouring medium. And if I'm putting silicone in it, it's the treadmill one, which, so far as I know, as all others have been using for some time, and at least as far as I know, none of them have been getting this yellowing problem. So I am not at all sure what's going on with that, and more experimentation will be necessary. Because now in this case here, let me take this off. These were some loose pores, skins, that I actually had just lifted up here from my aluminum tray. I have this, I don't remember what it is. It's some kind of an aluminum tray I think you're supposed to put under something. Let me see if I can get down to where the paper is still on there. It's an easy foil. Oh, it's an oven rack liner, I guess. Well, anyway, I've been using that to put underneath my, where I'm doing pouring. And this big puddle of paint from my more recent pour had stuck to that. And after it was dry, I was able to peel it up. And I actually did use this, where did I put it? Oh, it's over here now, back again. I did use this. This was before me noticing this problem. I had used this to, well, first of all, to glue them down to some pieces of cardboard so that they're sturdier. And then I had put this on top of the skins. And as you could see, there was absolutely no yellowing in this one at all. So like I said, I'm very puzzled about what's going on here, and I have not sorted that out. But I do want to mention that this one might have to use some care with it. Maybe it's the white paint. I really don't know. Like I said, I'm stumped on that. And if anyone has any ideas, by all means share. Okay, so that's enough on that particular finish. Let's put that back aside. The other one that I like to use is Deco Art's Triple Thick, which is called a Brilliant Brush On Gloss Glaze. Now this goes wonderfully over the polymer clay, and one of the things I really love about it, it is also, well, you can add things to it, which in my case usually involves glitter. I happen to be, I like glitz and things. Now I had, where did that one go? Let me get these things out of the way so I can be bringing the ones up I'm talking about. Okay, here. This was one of my items that I had done there. And as you could see, it turned out really sparkly. I really love that. I had put a surface effect on this. This was actually a texture that I had put on. And then I had put, well, I think it was one of the, it was either the Gilder's paste or the other wax type paint finish that I have, Metal Luster, I think, which is a, I'll look it up to make sure what it is, but to tell you about it. But anyway, I had put that over the surface, and for one reason or another, I don't know exactly how or why, but as I was going and proceeding on with this, because this is the one that has one of the glass cabochons in it, when I got to starting to get to the stage of things, I had noticed that something had actually chipped off some of those raised texture areas that had the silverish paint on them, so that the original effect that I had put on here was marred, and I was not happy with how that looked. So now I've known about this trick with using the Triple Thick for a while, and it's a lifesaver when you have something like that happen, so you can rescue an item and you don't have to throw it out. I just put some of that on around the surface area here, and then I just sprinkled a little bit of glitter down in it while it was wet, let it dry, and then of course it turned out gorgeous, as you could see, and it really does very nicely complement now the finish that was underneath that glass cabochon, because there was a fair amount of glitter in that particular pour. So the two of them nicely complement each other now, and I think it turned out quite pretty. So that's going to make a very pretty pendant. Now in this case, I already had a texture finish on the back, so I wasn't going to put it on the back. But when I was, well, for example, this one, now this one had, I think I'm going to be crossing into some other ones now, because this one was all resin on the front. This part here was Teresa's Deep Shine, and this part here was this particular resin. These are UV resins, by the way, so you need to use a UV lamp to cure them. This one is really cheap, and actually after working with it now in this case, I kind of find out why. It has a terrible problem with pulling back from the edges. Now, I didn't have so much trouble with this part of it because I had sort of, well, a bit of a raised effect here around the pour. And you'll notice, but this one stayed really nice and white. And that was actually, again, from that same pour sheet, the cutout where it turned yellow. As you could see, in this case, it had the white, and it did not turn yellow at all. And these turned out quite pretty, if I may say so. This was paint that was put on here, again, using one of my stencils. I'm not terribly happy with how this particular, I thought it was going to look prettier than it did, but it's not bad. It's, I will probably end up giving this away to someone because I don't think I want to sell it, but it is quite pretty. And the two resin types do play very nicely with each other. You just have to make sure that you cure each one before you go on to using the other. But the Deep Shine from Teresa is, it doesn't dome. If you're looking for that doming effect, which is what you see on this one, then you have to use one of these other types of resins. But those are really nice. And this one turned out nice, but the back of it was plain. I actually had planned on putting another piece of clay on there, but after I got to this and I started putting these on, I realized, oh, now I can't bake them because these resins cannot go back into the oven on the temperature that you bake your clay at. So I said, well, okay, here comes my triple thick again with a little bit of glitter, and I have a very nice finish now on that back side of that one. So if, like I said, there's often things you could do to salvage them. Now this set here, which I really love how these turned out. There's the pendant, and where's the other earring? If I can find it here, there we are. There we are. There's the two earrings and what'll be the pendant. Again, turned out very, very nice. Now this one was the this resin again. I noticed that if I'm using it where it has one of these raised edges on it, I don't have as much problem with it pulling back from the edges. So I'm going to, that's how I'm actually planning on, I'm going to use this stuff up because like I said, I've got a fair amount of it. This bottle I just opened up, and I'm going to go through it, and then when I do order more of that sort of, like I said, a doming type of resin, because this one it talks about that it's good for the doming effect. It is transparent, but for now, I'll just make sure I'm using it where it's going to be going up against some sort of an edge like that, because that way it does work. It's a great resin. It's just it has this pulling factor on it, which I found very annoying. On these, it became very evident because these are those wooden discs I mentioned earlier. Now, I put the UV, rather the triple thick, on the back side of this with the glitter to finish that off so I could hide where all the little bits of paint and everything were on the back side of it. And this is the, let me put it down so I can zoom in on it without my hands shaking so. And you can hopefully see that it did, I could not get it, no matter, I actually tried, I ended up putting, I think, 3 layers of the resin on this, trying to get it to stay all the way up to the edges of it. And as you could see, even after 3 tries, I just could not get it to do it. And yes, a little bit of the glitter did get into the resin too, which apparently did not cause a problem. But anyway, I do like how they turned out, But now I'll get into what I'm going to do to salvage these, because I actually do love the size of the pour here for this, because you could get a lot more of the effect of the pour in there, which I think is going, and it's very lightweight, being wood. Make very nice pendants. I don't know about earrings just yet, but in any case, these are really, really nice. So I like that. This is the other one. I had just done two, and as you could see, I had the same problem with it, with pulling away. And again, it has the ultra thick on the back with the glitter. Now, some of these other ones, this is another glass cabochon, and I put on the Teresa's Deep Shine over, because this was this one again was the wax wax paint, either the gilder's paste or the metal luster. That was the gold color on that one, but I still do think it turned out really lovely, and I like that one quite a bit. What other ones were I going to... I think I'm just about done with those that I have to show you. These here, which were again glass cabochons, and I have these little tiny bitty ones that go with it for earrings. Now this was a this was actually a bunch of it was gold. It was the gold mica powder, gold polymer clay, which I cut into narrow strips and then twisted. I rolled it and twisted it so that it was sort of a squarish kind of a rope, and I got this lovely, when of course then I packed them very nicely and tightly and then pressed them down. I got this lovely two-tone effect there in the clay. That was not done with any paint or anything. That was a part of what you call a mica effect, a mica. But anyway, it turned out, I really do like how those turned out. These were the glass cabochons. I just took a little dab, a little circle of that same gold polymer clay, and put them around on the edges, because I just wanted a little bit of extra security to make sure that glass cabochon wasn't going to pop off of there. And then I went over the whole surface of the thing with Teresa's UV resin, which again, I really do love that. It is a brush-on finish, because I knew with these little things being raised, Teresa's UV resin works great for that. And it also acts not only as a sealer, but also as, I guess you could say, a glue sort of thing, because it's very, very strong. And those are not going to come apart at all on anyone. I would not worry about that at all. I have to still drill holes into those, but those turned out really lovely, and I'm very happy about them. This one was... Where's the cabochon that goes with that one? This one again, this one was the, well, it was the same one I sort of started out with this one, but these ones did not get marred. This was that silver wax paste, paint kind of thing, like I said, gilder paste or metal luster. I don't remember which brand it is that I had bought, but it did turn a little yellow on that one. I didn't notice that until looking at it now, but I don't think it's quite as noticeable. I'm going to let these go because I think they are quite nice. But anyway, again, it was the same thing. This part here was the doming resin, and then the outer part was finished with Teresa's Deep Shine. I like using the Deep Shine when, like I said, because it is a brush-on UV finish. I really like it when there's a good amount of texture involved, or especially if, for example, if I've sculpted rose sort of effects, or something where you have, it's not flat. This is obviously can only go on flat surfaces. You can't put this on a curved surface of any kind. And many times, yes, when we are doing jewelry, we are making things that are curved in that. Like now this one, This one is actually a, I don't have a finish, a sealer rather, on this one yet. But this one was actually a jelly roll I did that combined a black polymer clay with well, it was a blended, it was primarily copper colored polymer clay, but it had a fair amount of some other colors into it to kind of mute it down to a bit. You're not going to see the full prettiness of that until I get a resin finish on it, which I can't do until I have to put the cutout yet behind it and a layer of black clay on the back side of it to seal it together. But the other thing I did on this jelly roll cane, which I did, I put a layer of gold foil, in this case it was actually copper foil colored, on the outside of that jelly roll. And so when I cut off my very thin slices of the cane and applied them down flat next to each other, the little bit of that coppery foil would show around the edges of the jelly roll slices. And so it ended up being very, very pretty insofar as a finish. But this one, it will have to still be sealed, but that will have to wait until, again, like I said, I get the cutout. What I'm going to do is roll out a layer of black clay and put the cutout there in the interior, and I will apply just a very thin layer of the translucent, the clear liquid clay that will act as a bonding agent between the already cured clay that's this and the black clay that will become the back part of it. And yes, I will probably apply some sort of a textured finish to the back of those. These are actually the cutouts. I did them in a different shape, but I had cut them out and they will fit into that space. But as you can see, yes, this is the last of my pieces from that particular pour. And as you can see, yes, it's very nice and white where the white was. So I'm going to have to do another pour, I guess, with the white, because that's what I'm starting to wonder, if the common factor in all these was that particular one had white showing in the pour. But anyways, we'll find out. This other last one that again is not quite finished yet, this was, I guess you would call it a bargello sort of pattern. I had some silver, this was all done with polymer clay. There was some black, there was some white, and then there was some silver. I just cut strips of them. I rolled them all out, which I assume was probably the thickest setting on your pasta machine. I rolled them all out and I cut strips of various sizes in all of the 3 colors. And then I laid those strips next to each other, and then I cut, and then I manipulated it, burnishing it down, making them all stay together, and eventually going through the pasta machine on the same setting that they had started out with to make sure they were a nice solid sheet of the striped clay. And then I cut that apart in strips in the opposite direction, and I laid them down so that for example, the white, as you could see, sort of came down in a pattern like this, and that it's what you call a bargello pattern. It's been used very often in quilting and things like that. Yes, I did sewing for many, many years, so I've done so many different types of crafting and so forth work over the years. It's all just, I use a little bit of this and that and everything else in what I do. So, but anyway, again, once I had those strips and I had them laid out in the pattern that I liked, I burnished over the top of it again to get the layers to stick together very nicely. And I can't remember if I did once again put it through the pasta machine, but again, I did what I needed to convert that into a nice solid sheet of, in this case, pattern clay. And then I cut my shape out here for the front part of it. And this one does not need to be sealed on the front, but I probably will. And I put a texture in over the top of it, which I don't know if you could pick up there. Maybe you can. But there is a texture applied over that sheet. Once I had the sheet all solid in this design, the Bargello pattern, then I put, it was actually some rubber stamps that I had that were kind of deep, and I went through and I pressed the texture in it. Now I've thought about it, but actually I liked how it looked at this stage so much, I'm going to just leave it. I could have put some sort of a wash of some sort, whether it would be with a diluted acrylic paint or alcohol ink or something like that, that would then rest down into this texture that I impressed into it, which was my intent at first. But when I did it to this point, I've been looking at it ever since and deciding, do I really need to put another layer of color into it? Because that's why I went with the white, black, and the silver, because I wanted something sort of a neutral tone, so I could put a color if I wanted to on there. I still can't quite make up my mind if I want to put a color, and if I did do a color, which one I would do. But that would probably, I actually am thinking about using, again, now that I'm looking at it yet again, I'm thinking about using like some acrylic ink, and I would put it on and let it settle down into those ridges, and then very gently wipe the top layer of it off with like a baby wipe, so that the acrylic ink, and I would probably use, not acrylic ink, alcohol ink, would probably just settle into that texture, which would add another layer of effect to this. And what I may do is I may try it, and then if I don't like it, because I'm using alcohol inks, I can always wash it back off again by just soaking it with more alcohol ink, and I could get it off of there. But I think I will do it just to see what it's going to look like. But anyway, that is going to be it for this video at this stage of things. This one was similar to this one, which again, this was one of the stencils combined with, I can't remember if that was an acrylic paint or if that was again that wax gilder's paste kind of stuff. But it was the same thing. But this one I do think turned out quite a bit nicer, this part of the bezel. This one, for some reason, it ended up a little funky looking. And so I said, this one is not going to be sold. I don't like, it's not quite up to my standard of things. This one, though, did turn out quite nice. And yes, I do have failures, but it got the glitter finish on the back side, which turned out very pretty. So I think that's all I'm going to feature at this point. And I will definitely do one more video with, well, what I call finishing the work, that is changing them into a finished jewelry item, whether it be a pendant. In this case, all I have are pendants and earrings here. I don't have any bracelets that I've done in this particular set of things. It takes me a long time to obviously finish these with all the different things that are going on. That's what a lot of people don't seem to understand, is just how much work goes into these sort of things. But anyway, I do think that they're about ready to be, most of these are ready to be finished into jewelry items. I just have to, in some cases, drill holes in them so that I can, that's actually what I just did here, is I took a bunch, some of the wire that I know is copper or aluminum, with this one has a particular finish applied to it, but I coiled them. I used my, this is called a mandrel. It has a slot cut into it. And that's what it's designed to do, is to make coils. And I'll have to check and measure these to see what size they are. I don't recall. But anyway, I do this. This is how I make my jump rings. I coil them up like this. I cut off the little funky parts on the ends. And then I have all kinds of little jump rings that I can then use to put through holes and things, to either hang them from something or somehow in one other way to connect them to something else. And these were ones that are in the, I think that's a bronze finish that's on those. And yes, you can color wire. If those of you that are interested, you can color wire using alcohol inks and a number of other things. I'll include a link in my list, that big monster list of links that I have in my blog article, to some art tutorials, and I'll put in the name of the artist involved here in when I edit the video, where they talk about how to color your wire or your metal findings. I know Sandy did one anyway, that's enough for me for this video. I do have one more, like I said. Well, you're going to be seeing me turning these into whether in this case earrings or pendants. I don't know if I'll have time to finish these up to that stage of things. This one I think I will go ahead and do so that I could show you in that video how that turned out, if I like it, that is, with the alcohol ink on there. I'm also going to be talking about how I'm going to conceal those edges on this one, because with it already having the resin on there, I cannot put polymer clay on it. I could put an air dry type of clay on it, but then I have a different idea of what I'm going to do for that. I'm going to not talk about that now. So anyway, thanks for watching. We'll see you again, and bye for now.